tendency to puff up the Federalists and deflate or ignore the Anti-Federalists. And that is absolutely a mistake. Because if the Federalists had their political and intellectual heavyweights like George Washington and James Madison, the Anti-Federalists weren't a bunch of intellectual and political slouches. They had some real heavyweights of their own. So in Virginia, they had George Mason, Patrick Henry, Richard Henry Lee. In Massachusetts, they had Samuel Adams and Mercy Otis Warren. They had New York's powerful governor, George Clinton. These were real important political figures, and in many cases, really powerful constitutional thinkers. And so the Anti-Federalists were a real challenge, both politically and intellectually, to the Federalists. So we shouldn't give Anti-Federalist ideas short shrift. The Anti-Federalists, their base of support tended to be the opposite of what we found with the Federalists. And so, if we're looking at, who tended to be an Anti-Federalist, farmers more likely to be Anti-Federalists than lawyers and merchants. Anti-Federalists, state by state, tended to have more support in the West, and so outside of the cities, rather than in the eastern part of states. And so again, the Anti-Federalist base of support more in rural areas than in towns and cities. And again, the Anti-Federalists included some really amazing constitutional thinkers. One of them was someone I already mentioned, Mercy Otis Warren of Massachusetts. She was a poet, an important historian, a great patriot during the American Revolution, and she wrote her observations on a new constitution under a pen name, a Columbian Patriot. If the Federalists have Publius, this fake name of someone writing the Federalist Papers, Publius being James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay, the Anti-Federalists had some amazing made-up named writers as well, people like Brutus, Federal Farmer, Sentinel. So a lot of really great thinkers on the Anti-Federalist side too. Last thing I'll say about the Anti-Federalists is their ideas were also powerful. They're ones that if you go back and, if you read something like Brutus's essays, so these important Anti-Federalist essays, you'll hear a lot of what Brutus says resonates with what we still debate today in America. Because in many ways, the battle over ratification was all about the debate over where do you place political power in the United States. Doesn't that sound familiar? It's the stuff we still debate in our politics and our constitutional politics today. So a lot of these debates are big debates over federalism. How much power do you give to the national government? How much power do you give to the state and local governments? And for the Anti-Federalists, their big concern was that the new US Constitution that was going to give too much power to the national government and take away too much power from the state and local governments, the governments that the Anti-Federalists thought were closest to the people. And so their argument generally was that this new constitution was going to let the national government seize all political power, swallow up the states, abuse the rights of the people, and ultimately that this was the road to tyranny. Not a very uplifting vision, but again, these sorts of political debates over where we're locating power are absolutely essential. They're absolutely important.